Okay, this is Adobe Illustrator, and I just wanted to take a couple minutes and walk through the interface and kind of point out some of the things you already know because you've been exposed to Photoshop. So as you can tell, it looks very similar as far as the tool panel on the left has a bunch of tools in it. A lot of them are the same. Many of them actually perform the exact same way as they do in Photoshop. But there are other ones that are exclusive just for Illustrator, and they only work in Illustrator. So we have our tool panel on the left. We have our application bar at the top with our file, edit, object, all that stuff. We have our arranged documents in the same place at the top there. So if we had 2 or 3 documents open, we could arrange them differently. As you can tell, this is also a tabbed interface, so I only have one document open. You can tell it's this one tab here. If I had more, it would continue on this dark gray area, just like it does in Photoshop. And then we have this panels bar on the right. And this is the icon view, which I don't use in Photoshop, but I actually use it in Illustrator, because then I can just click on one of these and fly out a panel and do whatever I need to do and then hide it again, because most of the time I'm doing pretty intricate work, and I want as much real estate on the screen as possible. But if you want it to look like Photoshop, you can expand the panels by the 2 little arrows at the very top in the dark gray area, and you can expand the panels and it'll look similar to Photoshop. Like you have a layers panel down here, and appearance and color and all that. So if that's what you're more comfortable with, just those 2 little arrows will toggle it back and forth. Same thing with the tool panel on the left. There's 2 little arrows at the top, and this shows you the classic tool view. This is what the toolbar used to look like before they made it one long bar. And I think as default in Illustrator, it comes up this way. Like I said, I just like to have more real estate when I'm working. As you can see with this panel out and this panel out, I've lost a significant amount of working space in the middle. So I like to have them both streamlined, but again, that's your personal preference. So let's just go through a couple of the tools real quick, and that we already know from Photoshop. Okay, so we have our Move tool, which is our selection tool. We know how to grab things and move them. We've done that in Photoshop. We have what's called a direct select tool. We kind of use this in Photoshop, and we'll start really using it and understanding it more here in Illustrator. The magic wand tool. This is for selecting things. We use that doing our masks and our other selections. We have the lasso tool, which is another selection tool. The pin tool we did not talk about, but we did talk about the type tool and the shape tool. This is part of the shape tool. So this is just a line tool. In Photoshop, it's part of the shape series. So here it's broken out because there's a couple different line tools that aren't in Photoshop. So the line segment tool is in Photoshop, but the arc tool and spiral tool and all that stuff is not. So that's why it's broken out. But we do have the shape tool, which is the rectangle and ellipsis tool and all that, and there's a couple other tools that are added here in Illustrator, but we know all these tools just like we do in Photoshop. We've worked with brushes before, so we have that. We have an eraser tool, we have a rotate tool, and down here we have a transform tool. So we actually have a tool that transforms if you want to change the size or the scale or anything like that. We have a tool that does it here instead of going to the menu and doing edit transform, because transform doesn't live in the menu. It's actually in the toolbar. It's a little different than Photoshop, but we still have the same idea, same understanding of it. Let's see here. We have the eyedropper tool, which we used in Photoshop to actually select colors, so we know how to do that. And we have the hand tool, which is helps us grab and move the document around so we can line it up in our screen. Doesn't actually do anything to our document. And then we have the zoom tool, which we talked about before, being able to zoom in. You can also go into zoom in, and zoom out, which is what we've done in the past. So In the toolbar, as you can tell, we've already, sorry I'm getting crazy with my zoom tool here. In the toolbar, we already know, because we come from Photoshop, we already know probably half or a little bit more than half of the tools. So that makes it really easy to get in here and really start playing around really quickly. What I also want to go over is the panels on the right side, and just show you some of the same panels that we have and some new ones that we have in Illustrator. So I think when you come in, every time Illustrator remembers what you did last time. So if you remember earlier in the video, I clicked on color. So when I hit that toggle, color's already selected. Yours might be on color guide. And this is a really cool tool we're going to talk about in probably the advanced session. But you have color guide, which is unique to Illustrator. Color, which is the same color as we had in Photoshop. Swatches, brushes, and symbols. Swatches and symbols are new for Illustrator. Brushes is just the brush panel that we had. We opened that up and changed the scatter of the leaves and stuff like that, if you remember. We now have stroke, gradient, and transparency. Sorry, and all those things. We had stroke before in an effects panel. It's a little different here. This is your gradient tool, which kind of falls underneath the color tool, but it's broken out a little differently. And then we have our transparency, which is opacity in Photoshop, which is, everybody thinks of transparency as what it is. It's the opacity. We have appearance, which is unique to Illustrator, and graphic styles, which is also unique to Illustrator. Both very powerful, and we'll talk about those in the next couple of videos. And then we have layers, which was exactly what we have in Photoshop. They work a little differently, and you can turn things on and off, and you can see things are named a little bit more generically because you have a whole bunch of paths. And we'll talk about paths in the next video, but you have a layers panel. So out of this stuff here, you probably know at least a third, if not half, of all the panels that are in Illustrator. So you're right on your way. So that is the beginning of the interface, all the tools that you know because you've come from Photoshop, all the panels, and then we're going to jump into Bezier curves in the next video.